This is William K. Murtaugh, Murt Witness 1, and we're on yet another day, on this Wednesday, February 5th, 2020, that Phil McConnell is still in jail. And Phil McConnell didn't seem to be too happy about that today. Phil McConnell made it clear that he was disappointed that his mentor, Donald J. Trump, didn't even mention him in the State of the Union last night. Did not hear the name Phil McConnell. Did not hear anything about the Pentagon Pedophile Task Force. Phil McConnell, for some strange reason, thought he was going to get a presidential pardon, presidential commutation or something, where he would be set free. He would be out and about, back on his little radio show in his studio. That didn't happen. Didn't happen because President Trump has no idea who Phil McConnell is. He's never heard of him. Now remember, some of President Trump's best buddies are in jail. Manafort, all these other people, they're in jail. President Trump didn't pardon any of them. So why would President Trump pardon Phil McConnell? Commute Phil McConnell. Call up Governor DeSantis of Florida and say, hey, let the man go. He's head of the Pentagon Pedophile Task Force, or he's affiliated with it in any way. And he's got this great Children's Crusade, and he works with my wife, Melania. So let the man go. Nope. Because it's all a figment of Phil McConnell's imagination. It's his little fantasy world. And that little fantasy world is all that's keeping Phil McConnell from banging his head against the wall while he sits on the concrete floor of his jail cell, talking on the phone. And another one living his little fantasy world is Timothy Charles Holmseth. Now this piece of work really pulled a nice little stunt. Tim Holmseth wrote in his little blog that Sean Hannity, Fox News personality, was arrested for violating a court order issued out of Broward County, Florida. Tim Holmseth said all kinds of things about Sean Hannity. Said he was woken up in the wee hours of the morning out of his sleep and arrested. Went into all kinds of detail about what it is that Phil McConnell, or that Sean Hannity did when talked about how he had interviewed somebody about trafficking out of the Ukraine, all this elaborate stuff. And it was a parody, of course. We all knew what he was doing, or thought he was doing. As somebody said almost immediately after I made a comment about it, it was a joke. Well, of course it was a joke. But the thing of it is, it's a joke on Tim Holmseth. Because I don't think Sean Hannity is going to think it's a joke. Let me explain. The only thing you see when you first come across this little article is a big picture. Sean Hannity, glaring headline, stating that Sean Hannity was arrested. Now that's not a terribly bright thing to do. Tim Holmseth is not the Onion. He's not one of these parody sites where everybody knows that what you read at these parody sites is fake news. That it's a comedy, a joke, it's satire. Tim Holmseth broadcasts day in and day out on his blog that he's an award-winning journalist, that he's not a parody site, he's not a joke site, that people that come to his website expect news, truth, all that stuff. They don't expect parody or satire or entertainment. And it's also the way in which the story was written. 95% of that story was written in a way that anyone that didn't know Tim Holmseth would believe that story is true. Or that Tim Holmseth was stating that that story was true. He was stating that he believed that Sean Hannity had been arrested. It was not until the very end, in a single sentence, where Tim Holmseth says it was someone else. Didn't even acknowledge that it was a parody. He just said it was somebody else that he meant to talk about in the story. So it was kind of a half-hearted correction to a lie. Now this puts Tim Holmseth in a legally tentative, tenuous situation. Now I doubt that Sean Hannity's going to do anything about this, even though at least a dozen people have brought it to his attention, including me. Sean Hannity is a public figure. He's probably used to this kind of nonsense. But it did have an effect. Had an unexpected effect. Had an effect on those that look to Tim Holmseth for the truth. And these people aren't too happy with him. And they told him so. They said that the story makes Tim Holmseth look like a fool. Makes him look like an idiot. That he should take it down. Tim Holmseth refused, of course. He came back and said, oh no, the reason I did this was to get attention. Well, he got the attention he wanted. But I think it's going to have unintended consequences. Because people are going to start looking at what he did today, or yesterday, I should say. Say, well, if Tim Holmseth can do this with Sean Hannity, what about all this other stuff he's written? The stuff where he's third in line to the President of the United States and the head of the Pentagon Pedophile Task Force, or what have you. Maybe people were right when they said he's lying about this stuff. That Tim Holmseth isn't who he's cracked up to be. That he's taking us all for fools. You know, Tim Holmseth may have done everybody's job for him and proven himself to be a liar. To be proven himself to be someone who cannot exercise good judgment. And it may be, just maybe, that people were right about him. That the people he's accusing of things are not guilty of the things he's accusing them of. Because remember, he's accused the Vice President of the United States of attempting to assassinate him, to kill him. There's no parody, there was no correction, it was somebody else. Timothy Charles Holmseth claimed that he was so important, that all the stuff he had was so vital, that the Vice President of the United States actually traveled to the state of Minnesota with the express purpose of killing him. Have him killed. Tim Homseth has made all kinds of claims in the past. He claims somebody knifed his car tire as an act of sabotage, as a warning, when he probably did it himself. Because I proved how that was virtually impossible. How somebody had done what Tim Homseth did, they'd be dead underneath his car. And the stupid thing he did with the mirror of his car. How that was a stupid thing to do. Stupid claim to make. But nobody saw through that. They believed it. They believed all this stuff. For one simple reason. He's a supporter of Donald J. Trump. As long as you support Donald J. Trump, you can say anything you damn well please about anybody. And they'll go along with it. Even if it's accusing Vice President Pence of murder. Attempted murder. See, this is something that really odd. That people base their position on something, on whether it's the truth or whether it's a lie, on politics. Not on whether it's true or not, but on politics. If you support a certain candidate, Democrat, Republican, Independent, whoever, as long as you say what you're saying and you support the same people that your audience supports, you can say anything you damn well please. And that's wrong. Truth is truth. Doesn't matter what political side you're on. Truth is truth. And people need to wake up to that. And Tim Homseth finally may have brought this home. Hard to say. Time will tell. It's hard to shake people off of certain beliefs. But the Sean Hannity story is a start. Now this brings me to the topic of the day. This topic I am calling undercurrent. Now, Northwest Liberty News has been doing segments on women who have run into troubles with CPS and how they've had their children, quote unquote, kidnapped by the state. Cynthia Ubsug with the state of Colorado, and this other woman, Julie Moore, I believe her name is. And their stories were quite remarkable. And there's a Tim Homseth connection to both of these stories. And a connection that Tim Homseth doesn't realize. And if he were to realize, I don't think he'd comprehend the ramifications of his connection to these two stories. Because he is connected to both of them. And let me start off. Now, Cynthia Ubsug, as we all know, had a son that she brought from the state of Florida because she thought that he had something that could be dealt with by a famous hospital in Denver, Colorado. She got permission from the state of Colorado. Let me correct this. She got permission from the state of Florida to permanently remove her child from the state. State of Florida didn't say, oh, no, you can't take that child from Broward County. Broward County. Now remember what Tim Homseth has said about Broward County. and what Broward County's doing and what Broward County Family Court's doing. But guess what? The Family Court of Broward County said if you want to take your child out of the state of Florida permanently, go ahead. We're giving you, I have no objection. Now, the reason Cindy Abzug had to do this is because it was a custody issue with the ex-husband. Or the ex, whatever he was. So I went to family court. Cindy Abzug argued a case. Court said, yeah, we agree with you. Take the kid and go. The guy can't have any contact with your child or him. We agree with your position. Absolutely. Without a doubt. Enjoy Colorado. Take out skiing while you're out there. We hear it's a good place to go skiing, So off she went. No problems. No warrant for her arrest. No court orders. Nothing. Didn't have to report back to the state of Florida at any time. As far as the state of Florida was concerned, she was no longer a citizen of the state of Florida. So she gets up to Colorado, and she takes her kid to the hospital, to this medical place, and there's a problem. Now, all we have heard on all these social media, non-professional talk shows is her side of the story. We haven't heard from the state of Colorado. We haven't heard from CPS. We haven't heard how she managed to get into this situation. Why the state came in, took custody of her children. So we've only got the extremely biased opinion of a talk show host who's clearly not an investigative reporter, and a woman that has a beef with CPS to judge what is going on. And she's surrounded by all these people that think that CPS is a criminal operation, that they're taking these kids for profit, that they put them in foster care because they make money off it and all this stuff. Again, no input from CPS. Nothing with their side of the story. That's not the purpose here. So, Cynthia Abzug gets hooked up with this medical student. Now. I went into this yesterday, what I felt about this student and his so-called diagnosis. They go to some meeting at a country club. That's maybe 4 or 5, 8 QAnons. People that talk about it. Get a couple plastic bracelets. And they go home. And the talk show host gets on there and says, oh, Main Street Media owes the woman an apology. I want to see a retraction tomorrow. All the stuff. But he misses an important detail. And this is what I don't understand, because if Jim is truly concerned about this situation, he would have gone a little bit deeper. Because the woman did, and he did mention this, and he proved exactly what the media said, that the woman had been influenced by people that claimed to be part of QAnon. Because where did Cindy Abzug wind up at some point? At Phil McConnell's house. And it came out that Cindy Abzug has been in contact with Phil McConnell. And Phil McConnell boasted about being part of QAnon, that he'd been in contact with people that had a part with QAnon. It came out that Cynthia Abzug had met Timothy Charles Homestead, Now, they may not have had a long conversation, but he was there. And anybody that knows Timothy Charles Holmseth knows that he claims to be part of QAnon. At one time, he had his pizza delivery car emboldened with the Q symbol, and there was even a newspaper article about Timothy Charles Holmseth being part of QAnon. But this isn't the most interesting part here. Anyway, so we start to get into things as this timeline progresses in the story. That Cynthia M. Zug winds up in Virginia. Now, what the hell is she doing in Virginia? Well, it turns out that she's there to get a passport. And it's not just any passport. It's a diplomatic passport. Now, here is a woman that is running away from the state of Colorado. She's trying to get her kids back. Yet she stops in the state of Virginia to get a passport. And something else rather strange is going on here. This whole thing is being financed, allegedly, by a woman who is the daughter of a political candidate, a man running for the GOP primary for Senate in the state of Arkansas. Now, Absug stays in Virginia in this nice, luxurious mansion. The car gets an oil change, tune-up, whatever's being done to it. And after a few days, they're off to the state of Georgia. And then from the state of Florida, they come down, or state of Georgia, excuse me, I'm getting ahead of myself. They come down to the state of Florida, to the city of Ocala. And they meet with the infamous Mr. Hallett of E-Clause. And they get some notarized thing from Mr. Hallett. And they're off to the state of Arkansas. Now, at some point in this little sightseeing tour, they're getting a lot of money, thousands of dollars, from this alleged source, this daughter of a political candidate. And at some point they figure out that there had been a warrant for Cynthia's arrest, and they were never shown the warrant. Now, what's interesting here, if we go back, rewind a little bit to the talk show. The talk show got into a big issue about a warrant that was issued the day after Cynthia got arrested in the state of Montana. But at no time at this point did he mention the fact that there was already a warrant for her arrest out there. It had been issued by the state of Colorado. It was a completely different warrant. So, this is another case of either this talk show host not doing his homework, or for whatever reason making an erratic presentation to piss and moan about this second warrant. So anyhow, we get this woman. She's at Arkansas for a while, getting all this money, staying in all these hotels, rooms paid for, told you got to use cash because they will find you if you use ATM cards and this, that, and the other thing, or stay in a hotel where you got to provide identification. Went through all this cloak and dagger, driving around in a car belonging to a dead man. And there's not supposed to be a warrant. And to end this particular chapter, Cynthia Abzug winds up in Kalispell, Montana, the home area of this particular radio show host. And she gets pulled over and arrested while she's leaving town. Because as it turns out, she'd already been to see the talk show host. So the purpose of being in Kalispell, Montana was over with. And the direction she's going is not back to Colorado, it's to Canada. Look at the maps. Look at the police report that says where she was caught and the direction she was going. She's going to Canada. Now, how is she going to get her child by going to Canada? Something else is going on here. Now, remember the story that this woman told, that the talk show host says is a creation, is a fabrication, is a lie, it's a frame-up, that there was a plot to kidnap the child from the foster parents. They went through this whole diatribe about how they couldn't possibly know who the foster parents are and all that, and I discounted that. I came up with my idea of how that could be possible. But he totally discounted it. But then here's part 2. He has this woman on his talk show for the second time. He's had this woman on before. This woman tells her story. This woman is sitting in a parking lot in a van. She's got 5 kids. She's texting her husband, who's a truck driver, hunched over the wheel, apparently, doing what people do. People have this thing about, if you ever watch somebody text on a phone, they don't text sitting up. They text like they're looking at the floor. They're bent over, looking down at their phone, and they're doing the thumb thing, clickety, clickety, clickety. Of course, they don't click. And it's kind of funny to watch, and you can get what they call texting neck from it, because you're you're stretching your neck, and it puts pressure on your spine and all this stuff. So somebody calls the cops. So there's a woman in the parking lot bent over her steering wheel. I don't know if she's passed out, thrown up on the floor, or she's asleep. And there's all these kids in the car, and they're just bouncing around, not buckled in or something. I don't know if they're living in the van in the parking lot or what's going on. But it seems kind of weird. So the cops come and investigate. And who knows, maybe the woman copped an attitude or something, pissed the cop off, or whatever the reason, but she goes through this long, convoluted story about how they take her to the hospital for her own good, and how they went through this whole thing that lasted until 2 o'clock the next morning, and then she's finally able to go home. CPS comes in, takes a look at the house, wants to know why there's no sheets on the bed. We go through all this. And they leave. And she gets, and then they go through all this. Eventually, they take her kids, and she has to go to court. And she gets her kids back, but she has to fight for them. All because somebody called in and reported it. And she sets up a GoFundMe account because she wants to hire a lawyer to fight what's going on here. And of course, the lawyer that was appointed by CPS, or the one she currently had, says if you don't take that thing down, you're going to lose your kids. CPS wants it taken down because you're making them look bad. And so she takes it down. But before she can take it down, the mystery woman from Arkansas sees the GoFundMe account. And she's contacted. And she said, I can help. And so this conversation starts up. And the woman goes through this story of how this benefactor says that we can get your kids back, we can get rid of all your troubles. Are you near a Walmart? Because we can send you some money to help you out. She says, yeah, Walmart right up the street. And so she's given very specific instructions. Okay, load your kids in the car, go to Walmart, and we'll give you some money. And the woman says, okay. She's about halfway to Walmart. And the woman calls. Or she calls a woman or something, I can't remember. But anyway, there's a conversation between her and the money woman. And the woman, she said, I'm on my way to Walmart. And apparently a question was asked. Did you get the kids? No, the kids are at home. And said, stop right now, turn around, go back and get the kids. I gave you instructions. You were supposed to get the kids and bring them with you. You're going to get the money and you're going to leave the state and you're going to come to Connecticut. What? Was the woman's reaction. So, what do you mean I'm going to take my kids to Connecticut? Are you crazy? They're in school, there's this, there's that. I'm not doing that. Says you got to get your kids and you got to leave the state. You got to come out here. I says, we've got medical things we can do. We got all kinds of help we can give you, but you got to bring all your kids and you got to come out here. And after a bit of hemming and hawing, after all this money was sent, the woman said that something didn't register right, and she backed out of it. Said, I ain't taking part of this. You people are nuts. And again, this is Field McConnell. By extension, this is Timothy Charles Homestead. And the very same group that's part of the Children's Crusade. This is all mentioned. Now what's going on here? Two different women, all this money circulating around. Women are told that they need their kids and they need to bring them with them. Now, in the case of Absuck, she didn't have her kids, so they were trying to figure out a way to get her kids back. They want her with her kids. For some reason. And this is what you have to look at, folks. And look very closely, because this is where the story is. This is what all these investigations about that I've been talking about. Is why is it that this mystery woman and this group that's affiliated with the Children's Crusade soliciting these mothers to bring them their children? Why is it that the mothers at some point have to come with their children and go through whatever process this group has set up to get away from CPS? What's going on here? The key, everyone, is the children. They want the children. Why do they want the children? Why is this so important that these people are willing to spend thousands upon thousands of dollars? It's estimated that over $100,000 has been spent by this group in situations like this. For every case that goes reported on talk shows and in social media, there are two that go unreported. There's a rumor that there are about 10 or 15 of these cases that are being looked into. And all these cases have one thing in common. Women, not men, women that have problems with CPS who have been told that they need to grab their children and come meet them. Go to Connecticut, go to Arkansas, go to Virginia, go here, go there. But get away from your home state. Now, this is the undercurrent of this story. Because remember, the Children's Crusade is supposed to be about stopping child trafficking. Key word is stopping. Now, how is having the mothers of children involved with problems with CPS and their alleged child trafficking going to be solved by removing these children from their known environment, from their schools, in a lot of cases from family, grandparents, uncles, aunts, their child age friends and so forth, to go on some road trip with a single parent to meet a bunch of strangers, throwing thousands of dollars at the adults for reasons unknown. And the answer, unfortunately, and most likely, is that rather than the Children's Crusade being about preventing child trafficking, the Children's Crusade is a front for child trafficking. For it's the only thing that makes sense. It's the only thing that would explain why it is necessary to spend all this money to get these single women, or women alone without their spouse, boyfriend, husband, what have you, to make these long trips after being financed in advance, thousands of dollars. These aren't loans. They're not saying, okay, we're going to loan you $2, $3, $4, $5, $10,000, and you're going to sign a promissory note to pay it back. No, we're going to give you this money. We're going to help you. Come see us. What the hell's going on here? What's going on here is a yet unexplained reason why they want these children. Why they want the parent of these children, the female parent of these children, to go to an unfamiliar location, to be under the financial control of this group. Because remember, these women usually don't have their own money. This woman that was on the social media show that didn't go along with this was broke. She didn't have money to pay her bills. She didn't have money to pay buy food. She made this clear. She's trying to raise 5 children on her own. I don't know what the hell's going on with the husband, the truck driver. Truck drivers make pretty decent money. I was a truck driver for 40 years. I was knocking down $1,000 a week. Or more. And yet this woman, who was also getting public assistance, was broke. What the hell's going on here? But that's a side issue. But she's getting help from complete strangers. This Sarah person is doling thousands of dollars out like grocery coupons, enticing these women to do the stupidest thing they could possibly do, to do the one thing that would guarantee them the loss of their children if they're ever found. And that is to bail on any proceeding that's going on with CPS. And follow the orders of whoever this mysterious group is. This mysterious Children's Crusade. Going around giving diplomatic passports. Trying to get these women and their children out of the United States. Because that's the key here. For some reason, they want these mothers and their children out of the United States. Why else would you need a passport except to leave the country? Why would you leave the country? This is the unanswered questions here. What is it that is causing the Children's Crusade to entice these people to leave the country? This is what's being investigated. This is the answers that are trying to be found as to why it is necessary for these mothers and their children to leave the United States. Now, let's go back to this woman with the 5 kids. And also Cynthia Abzug here. Now, these 2 women also have something in common that nobody picked up on. And that is that these women have had an ongoing problem with CPS. Abzug had it because of the hospital. This woman with the kids in the van admitted on air that she had had previous problems with CPS. So, somebody makes a call about texting in a van, in the one case. Now, how is this important? Why did the police react the way they did? It's because this woman has a history with CPS. They called in to the desk sergeant to talk about this. And they said, yeah, we've had reports on this woman before. This is why. Yeah. So, and so whoever called the police to report this texting wanted her to get caught, wanted her to be investigated, because somebody somehow knew that this woman had a history with CPS, and it was not a good history. That they knew that if somebody reported this woman, that she was going to get investigated. This was not going to be an ordinary well-being check where somebody out shopping was texting somebody on a cell phone and all they had to do was answer a couple questions and, oh, okay, well, enjoy your day. Now, the police had a reason to suspect that there was something wrong when they walked up to that car. It's because they were warned that something was wrong. They said, somebody probably told the cops, look, this woman's got a history with CPS. We know who this woman is. We've seen her act this way before. She's probably taken drugs, so on and so forth. Something triggered the cops. The woman was set up, in other words. And the woman was probably set up by the Children's Crusade. Now, this little theory, if you want, because that's all it is, a theory. But think about this. Let's go back and look at the story of Cynthia Abzug. Cynthia Abzug claimed that the reason that she bought a gun, this is a woman that's probably never owned a gun in her life, she had to go out and learn how to use this gun because she claimed that there was either a peeping Tom or somebody tried to break in her house. Now, isn't that rather convenient? That here's a woman who's having problems with CPS, and all of a sudden somebody's breaking into her house or attempting to break in her house. And so this med student who saw her story on the internet reached out to her because he's such a kind soul. That in itself was kind of weird. What is not known is if this kind soul, this med student, had ever heard of Field McConnell, the Children's Crusade, Northwest Liberty News, or any of these other groups. Or whether for whatever reason he just happened to be looking around on the internet and he by chance came across the Cynthia Abzug story and reached out to her. Something rather interesting about how all this went down. And then we get this guy that's flown in that has a relationship with Field McConnell, comes with all these weird spy novel credentials, and plops down on Cynthia Abzug's couch because of this guy that breaks in and they feel she needs protection. It would appear to me that Cynthia Abzug was getting set up, that she was slowly drawn into this web of intrigue because somebody saw her story on the internet. That's what the two women have in common, you know. That they had put their stories on the internet, they were reaching out to these social media websites. And here comes the Children's Crusade. In both cases, direct connection. So you start picking apart the details in these stories and looking at it without bias, wondering how all this could have happened. Why is it that two single women with at least one child having problems with CPS suddenly find themselves entwined with the Children's Crusade? Why this strange set of circumstances? In one case, someone trying to break in the house and the need to go out and buy a gun and have two men involved. And this other woman minding her own business in a parking lot, texting in a van to her husband, and the police get called. Kind of a convenient thing. I mean, how many of you out there, with or without children, are in a parking lot, playing with your smartphone, looking down, because it seems to be the convenient position to do this in, on your cell phone, and have had the cops come up and ask you what the hell you're doing? Hell, I'll sit there and I'll be live streaming in the car, my arms waving around and making gestures with nobody in the car, and I don't get some cop banging on my window and wondering what the hell I'm doing. Because it's clear I'm sitting there yakking away on my cell phone. So the story is bogus from the beginning. Either the woman is making some stuff up or she's being set up. Because the whole thing makes absolutely no sense at all. That a cop is going to go through all this crap because some woman's texting in a van. A cop's going to know in 5 minutes that there's something weird going on. Because he's looking at your face to see if your eyes are dilated or what have you from taking and abusing drugs. He's going to listen to see if your speech is slurred. He's going to look for body language. All kinds of things to determine whether or not there's a problem. But if somebody's called in and said, this woman's had problems with CPS with these kids, she's not taking care of the kids, you know, we've seen them running around, maybe they embellished the story and said they thought maybe the woman had swatted one of the kids, or she's screaming and yelling, or she's just letting the kids run around while she's playing on the phone, or some other thing. I mean, somehow the cop got it in his head that there's a problem with this woman. And the same thing happens with Cynthia Abzug. Now, the daughter came right out and said that the mother had talked about the kidnapping, that she had met these people, and they talked about Q, not just from her mother, but from these other people now. She's met these people more than once. So in the case of the Abzug situation, when this goes to court, we're going to find out what the hell's going on. Because the daughter is a material witness to a crime, an alleged crime. So she'll be called to testify. The prosecution will ask her questions in the manner that they ask a person this age. And she can tell her story. And the defense attorney can do his thing or her thing. And the story's going to come on. We're going to get some answers here as to what exactly happened and how Field McConnell and Tim Holmseth play into all this. Because this is a really strange situation here, where we've got two different women with children in trouble with CPS being enticed with a hell of a lot of money to go on the lam, to be fugitives. Now, Timothy Charles Holmseth, for the last decade, over a decade, has declared that he is against human trafficking. He's against child kidnapping, child trafficking, against all this that has to do with these sacrifices, slavery, all of it. And instead, he may have found himself smack dab in the middle of a human trafficking ring, a human child trafficking ring. And who knows what the alleged purpose is for this group getting their hands on these kids. What purpose is there for this group to spend this huge amount of money on children? Because that's what they're doing. It's the children they want. The clue came with the one woman. She went to Walmart to get the money and forgot the kids. And she got screamed at for it. The way she told. She said the woman was rude. She said the woman said, "I told you to bring the kids. Follow instructions. Turn around and go back and get the kids and bring them with you." And the woman had the sense enough to realize there's something weird going on and backed out of the situation. Said, "I'm not going through with this. These people are crazy." I said, "My kids are in school. They're in a familiar environment." She gave all the common sense reasons for not just picking up and going to some strange state to meet some strange people who wants to do who knows what with her and her children. Cynthia Abzug didn't do that. She's too far along in the process to back out. She didn't realize there was a problem until about 2/3 of the way through it, and by that time she was committed. So, if this Northwest Liberty News is truly interested in solving the problems of child kidnapping and human trafficking and the selling and all this other stuff that he's declaring himself to be against, He would investigate what in the ever-loving hell is going on here. I'm not saying let CPS off the hook. I mean, there are problems with CPS. But somebody's taking advantage of the situation. Somebody is sitting there enticing these women to go on these road trips for some weird reason. And it's involving their kids. This is the question that I was waiting for Northwest Liberty News to ask, and it wasn't asked. And that alone should make people wonder as to why he did not answer that obvious question. What is going on with the Children's Crusade? And what is going on with this mysterious woman from Arkansas? What's going on with all this money? And what is going on with Timothy Charles Homestead? Because whether it's accidentally or on purpose, Timothy Charles Homestead is right in the middle of all this. He's made another road trip clear across the country to Bend, Oregon. And he's still writing his little conspiracy theories. But there has been a fundamental change in things. Just haven't quite noticed it yet. People aren't paying attention to the undercurrent. Everybody is so busy whining about Phil McConnell being in a county jail because he couldn't keep his mouth shut that they're ignoring these other questions. And I think that's on purpose. I think attention is being drawn to Phil McConnell and his little situation to distract from the women's two tails, Cynthia Abzug and this other woman. Because if people start looking into what's going on with the Children's Crusade and why all this money is being spent to entice these people to engage in these questionable activities, there's a bigger story here. A bigger story than some guy making death threats against an attorney in Florida. There's something else far, far, far more serious going on. And that's what's being investigated. This is why bail is being refused. This is why there are certain out-of-the-ordinary things going on in law enforcement. Because there's a lot of things that are going unsaid right now. There's a lot of things that are going unsaid that I can't say. But there's an old expression. Goes back to the days of the Nixon impeachment. Follow the money. If you follow the money, you're going to get your answers. If you follow the thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dollars that are being spent, and who's doing the spending, the answers are going to come out. Because this is the makings of a fictional true crime mystery novel. But it's not fiction. This is true crime. It's happening right now. There is something weird going on with the Children's Crusade. There's something weird going on that involves people that are having problems with CPS. There's things going on that involves mothers of children and disputes that they're having with CPS. It involves strange, unexpected, out-of-the-ordinary things that are happening to these mothers that are having these disputes with CPS. Calls to police. Break-ins that require the purchase of a weapon. Strange things. And it's these things that are eventually going to lead to the answers to what's going on with all this money, what is going on with the Children's Crusade. What's the motive, and what are the ramifications, and who's involved, who's guilty. This is William K. Murtaugh, Mert Witness 1. Have a good one.